And then again, those last lines where they say, what is wrong with the world? That's what we're looking at today. So let me see. So we're continuing to pray the rosary. Oh, let me always start on them. Oh, yeah. So here, where did that little quiz go? Let's see, it's not here. Yeah, it's still here. So here's the slides for today. I don't think I have this one isn't in a pear deck, but I am going to have you take notes. So where it says end to Theodicy notes, you can either take your notes on a piece of paper or type them up, and I will have you submit them at the end of class to make sure everyone's like paying attention and on track. And remember, you have this little quiz here. It's actually not on 1 through 4. It's only on 1, 2, and 3 of Genesis. And make sure to review the Quizlet, review the terms that relate to chapters 1, 2, and 3, and make sure to really study, because I've noticed people, like, for example, are getting original holiness and original justice confused. Original holiness refers to the fact that we shared in God's divine life, which meant we were immortal in the original plan, whereas original justice talks about the harmony between men and women, humans in creation, and within our inner psyche. Yeah, so that closes Tuesday. I'm not sure why it isn't showing up in the upcoming, but there's a link here. Just don't forget to take that. I'll try to remember to email yins to remind yins, but if I don't forget that. You might want to do that, like put it on, if you have a planner, or if you're using your phone as your planner, put that on your list of things to do today. So that's what's going on the agenda. Let me go back to this. So let me get our mystery for today. Where's that app? Here it is. Sorry, it'll just take a second. Rosary. Actually, you know what? While I'm doing that, because we're on like the 4th decade, I think. Where's that? Oh, okay. So on the chat, if add anything you want to pray for today, any special intentions, while I click through and get myself to where I'm supposed to be. Boop. Are we on the 2nd or 3rd? I can't. Yeah, I think we're on the 3rd. Okay. So for your special intentions, Ella's family, Sahana's friends and family, Abby's friends, Issa's family and pets and friends. And of course, we continue to pray over the global pandemic, for our scientists and doctors to use the wisdom God has given them to come up with a vaccine, that Mary would shelter all the first responders in her mantle and keep them from getting sick, and that God would give us wisdom and prudence, all of us who are voting in the election, to pick leaders who will serve the common good of all global citizens, not just Americans, but everybody in the world. Okay, so let's begin in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And today we're on the joyful mysteries. So we'll do the 3rd joyful mystery, which is the nativity of Jesus in Bethlehem. And this is a reading from the Gospel of Luke. While they were there, the time came for her to have her child, and she gave birth to her firstborn son. She wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for him at the inn. Now there were shepherds in that region, living in the fields and keeping night watch over their flock. The angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them, and they were struck with great fear. The angel said to them, "Do not be afraid, for behold, I proclaim to you good news of a great joy." Uh, of a great joy that will be for all people. For today in the city of David, a Savior has been born to you, who is Messiah and Lord. And this will be a sign for you, and you will find an infant wrapped in swaddling clothes, lying in a manger. Infant Jesus in the manger, Mary, Joseph, and the shepherds adore him. Let us also adore Christ, the Son of God, in the silence of our soul, from the depth of our heart. Let us ask Mary to make us love Jesus more, and also the gift of poverty of spirit. Okay, so let's see here. So as we're praying, we'll do an Our Father, then 10 Hail Marys. And again, during that time, that's the time when we reflect on the mystery of Jesus' birth. So, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Now our 10 Hail Marys. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now at the hour of our death. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now at the hour of our death. Amen. This rosary is kind of weird. Did they count this out right? Well, I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look at this later. So now the glory be in the Fatima prayer. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, a world without end. And then the Fatima prayer. O my Jesus, forgive us our sins. Save us from the fires of hell. Lead all souls to heaven, especially those in most need of thy mercy. Amen. In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Yeah, this, I don't know. I'm going to have to look at that. I don't know if that was 10. It's kind of a weird rosary. I got that at my mom's. I'm always giving my rosaries away, and I given another one away, and I didn't have one, so I took that one from my mom's. I don't know. That's kind of weird. Okay, so our learning objectives are, we'll define theodicy, free process, free will, and I'll introduce you to a theologian called John Polkinghorne, and we'll explain the following ways to understand the problem of evil: free will and free process, just the idea of having perspective, and I have a little parable of my sister's army uniform, and I had it at school so I could show it to you. maybe while the video is playing, I wonder, I think I had another of her uniforms, but I don't know if I have it here. It might be in storage somewhere. So, okay, so this is Bishop Barron. I think we've watched a video from him before, and he's a bishop, and remember, the bishops are the leaders of the church. They, with the Pope, form the magisterium. And Bishop Barron, he has this apostolate called Word on Fire, and he was one of the first, when YouTube first started, he was one of the first priests to get on there and use it as a way to teach the faith. So this video is a little bit old. It's from the tsunami and the earthquake, and then the tsunami in Japan. But it's one of the, I think, the best articulations of how to understand the problem of evil, because he addresses not just moral evil, but also he tells us about John Polkinghorne and one of his understandings of how we can understand natural evil. So I want you to take notes while you watch this. You could take them any way you want on a piece of paper, and then just turn in a photograph, or just make sure I can see the photograph. So look at it before you turn it in. Or you could do it on your computer, and then we'll upload them at the end of class. And if it's hard for you to listen to the video and take notes, don't worry, because I'm going to review everything afterward, and I'll put notes up on a whiteboard for you after. So if you're having trouble following him and you're like, oh, I can't write this stuff down and think about this at the same time, that's okay, because I'm going to go over it afterward. But for your notes, you could just do keywords or points, or if he says something and you're like, I don't understand that word, maybe write down the word and put a question next to it. And so let's take a listen. Is everyone ready? To Bishop Barron. I'm going to mute myself while we're doing this.
On November the 1st, 1755, there was a terrible earthquake in Lisbon, Portugal. The temblor itself lasted, they say, about 10 minutes, destroyed much of the city. But then, as would be the case about 150 years later in San Francisco, there were terrible fires that broke out after the earthquake. They killed many more people. Many of the survivors went to the seashore to get away from the fires, and then a tsunami arrived and killed many who were on the shore. Now, this terrible event sent shockwaves across Europe, and I mean that now metaphorically. It sent shockwaves through the intelligentsia of Europe, because though people in the 18th century, maybe in their ancient history books, had read about Pompeii or ancient disasters, no one had experienced or heard about a disaster on this scale. How to reconcile it with belief in a personal providential God? This began to preoccupy a lot of the religious and intellectual leaders of Europe. Many of the major players at the time, think of Kant and Rousseau, Voltaire, all weighed in on this dilemma of the Lisbon earthquake. The basic conclusion was it was irreconcilable with belief in a personal providential God. It just didn't seem possible that such a God would permit such a terrible disaster. People say, well, maybe, an abstract God, the God of deism, a distant cosmic force, but not the personal God of the Bible. It just doesn't make sense. Well, I thought of the Lisbon earthquake the minute I heard about this recent disaster in Japan, because it was an eerily similar scenario, with the earthquake itself followed by massive destruction, followed by the tsunami, and followed by the inevitable questions about God and such a disaster. There are two very easy options when it comes to this question, and you see them up and down the ages. The one is to say, well, clearly it's divine retribution. Clearly this is God expressing his anger about something. So we saw, for example, in the wake of the Japan earthquake, there was actually a local governor in Japan, who spoke out and said, this is divine retribution. Later he apologized for that, but that was his first reaction. In our country, Glenn Beck said something similar, evidently, that this was a sign of God's retribution. In other disasters, people like Pat Robertson have chimed in, in a similar way. What's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that is the Bible itself gives the lie to it. Look in the book of Job. So Job is this sort of archetype of the suffering human being that's undergone the worst sort of trials in every way. His friends, in quotes, come along, and they endeavor to explain his suffering precisely using this kind of logic. Clearly, Job, you've done something, because God would only attack you this way if you had done something. And Job consistently and rightly says no. And then the book of Job gives a much more nuanced answer to the problem. It refuses this kind of easy option of simply saying, oh yes, I know, it must have been God seeking retribution. Now I say there are two easy answers. That's one. The other one is the answer of the agnostics and atheists that would simply say, well, it proves obviously there's no God, or most likely there's no God. How could God ever be reconciled with such disaster? I think the truth of it lies beyond those easy options. And our great tradition articulates it rather remarkably well. Here's the first observation to make. God can never be construed as the cause of evil. Now, there are two reasons for that. One is because God is love. That's all God is, straight through. He's love. Therefore, God cannot will something wicked. You can't say God is directly willing something evil. The second reason is that God is described as being itself. Therefore, God cannot ground or cause the non-being which is evil. Evil in the strict metaphysical sense doesn't exist. It's a privation of the good, we say. It's a lack of being that ought to be there. Think of a cavity in a tooth. It's a lack of some integrity that ought to be there. So God as being itself can't be the causal ground of evil. That's why we shouldn't talk about God causing or willing directly evil or suffering. So what do we say? We say that God permits certain evils in his creation to bring about a greater good. Now again, it's a category that makes sense. I mean, we see that happening in our own lives. Sometimes certain evils have happened, but out of them come a greater good that would never have happened without the evil. We know about that. And let me give you a framework maybe for thinking about some of these really disastrous evils. Hitler, Stalin. You say, well, how could God have possibly permitted what they did? Well, God wants the great good of free will. He desires us to be his friends and not just his puppets. And therefore, he wants free will. Well, see, to want free will is at the same time to allow for the abuse of free will. You can't have free will without allowing for the abuse of free will. So you might say God allows people like Hitler and Stalin and all sorts of other wicked people so as to bring about the greater good or to permit the greater good of free will itself. Now follow that line analogously. John Polkinghorne, I've mentioned before, is an Anglican priest and also a particle physicist. So he's a very high-level scientist and a priest. He's written very provocatively on religion science issues. He says analogous to this free will explanation is what he calls a free process explanation. What do I mean? I mean that God wants his creation. He wants nature to have its own integrity. God lets it be and lets it unfold according to its own rhythms. So this tsunami was caused by an earthquake caused by the shifting of tectonic plates. Those plates are ingredient in the very structure of the Earth. The Earth is the way it is because of its relation to the sun and the solar system, etc., etc. That it's the result, if you want, of natural processes that God has allowed to unfold according to their own rhythms. So God allows the world to have its own rhythms and processes, even when these result in things that are, from our perspective, both good and bad. I'll give you an example that I'm taking from Polkinghorne. The very dynamic, namely a random genetic mutation, that gives rise to evolution also gives rise to cancer. And so it's a natural process that has both good and bad consequences. Okay, let me put a kind of final broad perspective on this. We say God allows evil to bring about a greater good. There's a famous story in the Chinese tradition that speaks of a farmer. And the farmer has a horse that has run away. His friends come and they commiserate with him on the loss of his horse. He says, "We'll see." A week later, that horse returns with 3 other horses that he's brought back to the farm. His friends come and they say, "How wonderful, what good luck. These new horses have come." He says, "We'll see." His son gets on one of the new horses and rides around and falls off and breaks his leg. The friends come back and they say, "How terrible, what terrible luck you've had." He says, "We'll see." A week later, the officials from the government come to draft the son into the army. They discover he has a broken leg, they won't draft him. The friends come back and say, "Well, congratulations, what good luck." He says, "We'll see." And the story goes on in that vein, making a simple but I think very penetrating point that it's next to impossible for us ever to read the full consequences of an act or an event. What appears to us to be simply good or simply evil, given the way things unfold, is never all that clear. So, people of faith look at the world. Now, people of faith, I mean people that believe in God and believe in a life that stretches, yes, even beyond this one. We look at the goods and evils of this world and we say, well, what does it all mean? We'll see. We'll see what the effects of even this terrible event in Japan are, and we'll see in light of God's ultimate providence of the universe.
They're on mute.
There we go. Sorry. It's like the most overused phrase of 2020. Okay, so let's just review what he said. So you can add to your notes if there's anything that's additional. So again, in philosophy, like if you take philosophy 101 when you're a freshman in college, we call this problem theodicy. And it's basically the problem of evil. And it's a problem because if God is all good and all powerful and all knowing, then if he's all powerful, he should be able to stop evil. But obviously he hasn't because it exists. So he, must not be all good, or maybe he's not all powerful, but it challenges those, this sort of, what do you call it? Those sort of definitional attributes of God. All the omnis, omnipotent, omnipresent, benevolent. And so it becomes a question, especially when we're in the midst of great suffering, which we are now. So in his video that we just watched was from back whenever the tsunami was, I don't even remember anymore. But so that's what we're looking at. And it was also kind of in the Black Eyed Peas song as well. So first, Bishop talked about 2 easy answers. And he said that ultimately these kind of won't, and I'm sorry, I can't, it's so hard for me to write on this computer screen. What time is it? Okay. Ultimately, these answers don't really solve the problem. And the first was divine retribution. And even the Bible itself argues against this idea that God is just punishing people. Both in the book of Job gets all kinds of bad stuff happening to him, and he didn't deserve it. but also Jesus himself in the Gospel of John. I don't remember off the top of my head which chapter. But in any case, in the Gospel of John, there's this dude born blind, and all the rabbis come to Jesus and they say, "Teacher, why is this guy born blind? What did he do? Or was it something his parents did?" And Jesus said, "No, nobody did anything wrong. He's just born blind." So he, Jesus again kind of challenges this idea that somehow when bad stuff happens to us, it's because God's punishing us. That's not the answer. Then the next kind of easy way out would be atheism or as an agnosticism. Atheism or agnosticism. And so atheism is the argument that there are no good reasons for believing in God. And then agnosticism is, I just find it intellectually lazy. It's like, well, maybe there's a God, but there's no way we could ever prove it or come to a conclusion about it. And again, Bishop Barron calls these easy way outs because, again, it doesn't actually solve the problem. It just says, okay, well, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm just going to, throw the baby out with the bathwater and just throw out God. But as Christians, we're not going to do that. We have a rich intellectual tradition, and we do have some ways of understanding this. So first, Bishop Barron talked about the idea that God cannot will evil. So technically speaking, God cannot will, or if you want, cause evil. And so the reason for this is, and this is something I think a lot of people don't understand, is evil in and of itself, it doesn't exist. Evil is a privation of good. And so if we look at the characteristics of God, first, God is love. Or hang on, let me just do it this way. God is love. And to love is to will the good of the other. Therefore, God cannot will evil. It's a logical impossibility based on his nature. And then the other point he made was about the nature of evil and the idea of being. Remember we said God is the ground of all being itself. And that was that whole ipsum esse subsistens. So St. Thomas Aquinas said God is ipsum esse subsistens, the sheer act of to be. So since God is being itself, evil is an example of non-being. It's a privation of a good that should be there. So he gave the example of a cavity in a tooth. So if you have a tooth, so here's a tooth, I guess, and you have this little cavity here, we would say that this is a natural evil because it's lacking the integrity of the tooth that should be there. But notice it's not, the cavity isn't a thing, it's the lack of being that ought to be there. So since God is being itself, therefore, and if evil is non-being, God once again cannot will evil. Now, so where does that leave us? Well, if God cannot will evil, then we still have to explain evil, right? Now we have to say that God permits evil. And the reason for that is if we were to say that God didn't permit it, then he wouldn't be all powerful. So we see that God permits evil to bring about a greater good. And the greater good is free will. And I'll give some other exact ways to understand this in a second. But if we want to have free will, if we want to be free to love God, because that's why God made us, so we could love him back, then we have to be free. If we don't have freedom, we can't love, because love is a choice to will the good of the other. So if God doesn't give us free will, then we can't be friends with him. And then what's the point? We would just be like his robots or his slaves. And so, in order to have the free will, he has to allow for the abuse of free will. And we saw in our last lesson that the first parents abused their free will and caused us all to fall from grace. And now we all have a will that's sort of weakened. So it is difficult for us to choose the good. But again, if we don't have free will, then we can't make that choice. And I'll give you another way to think of it in a second. The last 2 points he made, let me save that. And then, can I clear? So then he talked about that dude, John Polkinghorne, and he talked about free process. So John Polkinghorne, this guy is so cool. He was a quantum physicist in Britain, and he had this great career in quantum mechanics, working on like the Heisenberg uncertainty principle and stuff like that. And then midway through his life, he decides, I think I'll become a priest. So he became an Anglican priest, and he writes beautifully on the relationship between faith and science. And he has this idea of free process, and it's a way to understand what we call natural evil. Because a lot of the evil we see in the world, it's just people misusing their free will, right? People driving under the influence of alcohol, or people stealing from one another. But that doesn't explain things like earthquakes. It doesn't explain things like the coronavirus. But what Polkinghorne says is he's like, look, in the same way that God allows people to be free, he also allowed creation to have its own freedom and integrity. And God allowed it to unfold. And we've uncovered the processes at work, natural selection, and evolution, and genetic mutation. But again, you have to take the good with the bad. So he's had the example of genetic mutation. This drives natural selection, right? So sometimes it could be very good. What if you're the little bunny that gets the gene that makes your fur turn white in the winter and brown in the summer? Great genetic mutation, because you're going to be able to survive and propagate your genes. But what if you're the bunny they got the gene that gave them cancer? I mean, if you're the bunny that got cancer, it's bad. But if you're the bunny that got the genetic mutation that allows you to escape predators, then it's a good thing. So, and again, I'll get more to something that might help us understand that better in a second. I'm working my way there. But in the same way that we have free will to unfold the way we're meant to be, nature does as well. And again, when we say God has providence, that means that God has a plan. And everything's unfolding according to his plan. So what might look like something that's good or bad right now, we don't know the end game and the end goal. And we trust that it's all going to work out for our benefit. Like right now, going through this coronavirus, it's really hard to see how this could ever be a good thing. But you never know. Maybe, babies a couple decades from now will have greater immunity to all kinds of diseases for having gone through this process. So again, and think about things like earthquakes. Like earthquakes cause tsunamis, but they also create mountains and great beautiful things. So again, the earth is unfolding and has its own integrity in the same way we do. And then the final point he made was that idea about the Chinese proverb. Oh, what's going on? Are people, don't leave. It's so like people are leaving. Okay, so then lastly, the Chinese proverb where the circumstances keep changing, and at every point, the friends of this guy say, "Oh, this is so great," and he's like, "We'll see." "Oh, that's terrible. We'll see." And again, this is the idea that, again, relating to God's providence. And I have another example, a visual example of this in a second. Like, we're stuck in this timeline, right? So mine started, well, I was born in 1980. I was probably started in 1979, but we're in this timeline, right? And so we see our part of the timeline. But the thing is, remember, God is in the eternal now. He is outside of time and space. He experiences past, present, and future all at the same time. So what looks to us, we're like a spotlight shining in on our part of the timeline. What looks like something terrible to us, again, we have no idea how the story is going to end. So like they say in the Chinese proverb, he keeps saying, "We'll see." We have no idea what God is up to. And again, that's where faith comes in. And the question is, are you going to trust that God is good and has our best interests at heart? Or are you going to reject him? And it's our choice. That's the great thing about free will. But there's consequences to that choice though. So another visual way to show this same idea, let me go back. So another way to say, oops, okay, another way to say the same idea. So like, look at this painting. Like, if you look at this painting, it's kind of hard to figure out what it is. You've got like green, there's like some kind of, maybe a white rock, some kind of string. I don't know what it is. That's maybe water. So I was zoomed in, right? I zoomed into this area right here. So again, that's our perspective. We're zoomed in on our part of the timeline. We can't see the whole thing. So if you look back, this doesn't look like much, and it doesn't make sense to us right now. But if we zoom out, this is how God is seeing everything. Everything, he has a plan, and everything is working to fulfill that plan. So again, understanding our limited perspective can help us understand that what seems like something really terrible, in the end, when we look back, might not be so terrible. It might be working for our good in the long run. The analogy of a parent, and then I'll tell you about my sister's army uniform here. Another way of thinking of it is like this. So if you ask the question, well, if God knew Adam and Eve would fall from grace, why not just take away their free will? Why not just make everything good? Why not just make it so people couldn't choose to do bad things? Well, imagine what that scenario would actually look like. Imagine, okay, you want to go and get your driver's license, and you say to your mom, "Okay, Mom, I'm ready to get my driver's license." And she says, "You know what? You could get in a car accident. You might get hurt. You might kill somebody else. Don't worry about that. I will drive you everywhere so you don't have to worry. You can't get in a car accident. I'll take care of that for you." So then you go to graduate high school and you say, "Okay, Mom, I'm ready to go to college. I got into Harvard. I'm going back east." And your mom says, "Ooh, I don't know. What if you fail a class? What if you take a major and then you can't get a job? I don't know, too risky, too risky. You just stay home with me. I will take care of everything. I'll pay all your bills. You'll be perfectly safe, perfectly happy, never have to experience failure. You'll be good." Then a couple years go by and you say, "Mom, I want to get married. I want to have my own family." And your mom says, "Well, no, you know what? But you could get sick with pregnancy. Your baby could die. Your husband could beat you. There's so many things that could go wrong. You know what? I will be your family. I will make sure nothing ever goes wrong. You'll never be abused by a spouse. It'll be all better this way." Now, none of us would opt for that. None of us would say, "Yeah, that's the kind of life I want." But when we ask that question of God and say, "Why didn't God just make it so nobody could make mistakes?" That's what we're asking for. We're asking for like a virtual slavery. And then the final way that I have to understand, Thea, get your kettle. Sorry. Thea! Sorry. The final way I have to understand this is my sister. She's a veteran of Operation Iraqi Freedom. And one day she was getting ready to go to Army, and I was looking at her uniform, and these are on each side of, I have her uniform at school. I could show it to you, but I didn't go to school today. But if you look on one side, she has this one, and on the other side, she has the other. And so I was looking at this one, and I was like, whoa, what is this? And she's like, oh, that's for the 63rd Infantry Division. And I was like, what does it mean? And she's like, well, it's a teardrop with a sword with blood on it and the fire around it. And I was like, what's the story behind that? And she's like, well, the 63rd was involved in the Nuremberg trials, which were the trials that held the Nazis accountable for their war crimes against humanity. And they took this insignia because Winston Churchill had this quote, either by the fires of hell or the blood of our swords, the Nazis will pay for what they've done. And so they adopted that as their insignia from then on. And so then she has this one on the other side. And on her uniform, these aren't in color. They're in the colors of the uniform. And when I first looked at this, I couldn't figure out what it was. And when I show it to students, students are always like, oh, it's a Wi-Fi symbol. But it's not a Wi-Fi symbol. Wi-Fi did not exist at that time. But I looked at it, I'm like, what is that? And she's like, oh, that's for the Rainbow Division. And I was like, what? The Rainbow Division? And she's like, yeah, I was like, but I'm like, it doesn't look like a rainbow. She's like, well, it's really half a rainbow. And I was like, half a rainbow? How is that going to strike fear in the hearts of men? And she's like, well, the story behind the Rainbow Division was they were from Hawaii originally, and so that's why they chose the rainbow as their symbol. And when they went to war again in World War II, they lost half of their members. So when they came home, they cut the rainbow in half, and their motto is never forget, so that they'll never forget the half of the men and women who died when they fought again in World War II. And so after she told me that story, I felt like a total jerk for making fun of the Rainbow Division. But as I reflected on these symbols on my sister's uniform, again, this idea of keeping things in perspective, my family was also, all of my grandparents fought in World War II, and some of my relatives who remain in Poland who didn't come to the United States, they were killed by the Nazis. And so, like, I know that there's evil in the world, and it's a terrible thing. What? I know it's a terrible thing, but for every Nazi who was out there killing people, there was an American soldier wearing, these symbols fighting against evil. And at the end of the day, evil didn't win, and evil never does win. We always, because we are made by God to be good and we're made in his image, we always have the choice. We can use our free will to be good, or we could use it to be evil. And having that choice is important. If you don't have the choice to be bad, then you don't have the choice to be a hero, right? So if we want things like heroism and valor, the natural consequences, you have to have the other side of the story. And so again, it helps to have perspective and realize that, yeah, there was a lot of evil in the great wars of the last century, but there was a lot of good. And the evil, again, it never wins, and it never will win. And that's, again, like the whole idea behind Christianity is Jesus is the victor over death by dying. And Christians are called the Easter people, that our story didn't end when Jesus died on the cross, right? He ultimately was victorious, and we have a choice. We can look at the evil in the world and kind of throw up our hands at it and be like, well, obviously there's no God, everything's terrible. We could say, no, there is a good God, and my God wants me to challenge this evil, to meet it in the face and rise against it. And so again, I think the fact that evil bothers people is a good thing, because if it didn't, then that would mean we're like living in an age of like psychopathy or something like that. But it's like, it's not the end of the story. And so I don't know, those are some just different ways to kind of think about the problem of evil that might be helpful. The last thing I didn't get to it with the other class. Maybe I'll save this for next time. So the next series of stories, until we get to the call of Abraham, they set up this sort of cycle of sin. and it shows the consequence of Adam and Eve's original sin for the rest of humanity. So the story of Cain and Abel, which is the story of the first murder, and then there's a couple of little stories and genealogies in between. And then we have the story of Noah and the great flood, and then the first covenant with Noah, then the story of the Tower of Babel, and then you have the time of the call of Abraham, the first of the great fathers of the faith. So these stories sort of set up the sort of cycle of sin, and set up this idea of covenant is kind of God's way of dealing with this, at least both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. But I think maybe I'll wait to do that because I didn't have time to do that with Block E because they got this before you. And it's always a little bit easier to have everybody at the same spot. So remember to turn in these notes. So where do the notes go? If you go to the agenda, go to N2 Theodicy notes. So, oh yeah, somebody's gonna return that. I'm like, wait, what? So put your notes here for today. And remember also on the agenda, there's that quiz. I don't know why the quiz isn't showing up over here. But if you look on this agenda, there's also this little quiz. Make sure to take that. It's just a vocab quiz. You get 2 attempts. But don't forget to take it, because if you don't take it, then it really messes up your grade. So probably we technically still have 10 minutes left in class. Maybe you could do it right now. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see the chat. Oh, Michaela asked, I thought it was the LGBT. Yeah, that was a good guess too. Yeah, it could be the LGBTQ symbol, the rainbow. Yeah, yeah. In that case, it wasn't. But yeah, that's a good guess too. That could have been that. I read somewhere why that was chosen as the symbol, but I don't remember what it was now. And Claire needed to go to the restroom. All right, so let's stop. Any questions or comments or anything before we go? You know, Zoom isn't the best place for discussions. No. Okay, well, then I'll let you guys go. It's a little bit early, but that's okay. And then just make sure you turn in the notes and take that quiz. There's no other homework though. Sound good? Okay, bye guys. I'll see you next time.
Bye, thank you.
Bye, have a good day.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
At the beginning of the class, I filled in attendance like a minute late, but my dad said he hasn't gotten like any emails or texts, so I might email you later if he does.
Okay, sure, no problem. Bye.